In 2019, a child psychiatrist named Dr. Richard Stevenson arrived in Holmes County, Ohio, to conduct what he expected would be a fairly routine needs assessment. His organization was evaluating whether Amish communities in the county might benefit from expanded access to mental health services, the same services that, in the surrounding non-Amish population, were stretched beyond capacity. Waiting lists for child therapy in the county's non-Amish clinics ran 8 to 12 weeks. Some families drove an hour each way to find a provider with an open slot. Stevenson expected to find an underserved population, a community without smartphones, without easy access to urban medical centres, without the cultural framework to even name what a cognitive behavioural therapy session was. What he found instead required him to reconsider the question he had been sent to answer. The referral rate from Amish community members for child mental health services was not low because Amish families lacked access. It was low because the presenting conditions, the anxiety disorders, the behavioural dysregulation, the attention deficits, the depression diagnoses that were filling the waiting lists of every clinic serving the surrounding population were, in Amish children, genuinely less common. He had not found an underserved community. He had found a community that had quietly solved something the rest of us were still treating. The question that emerged from his time there, the one this video is going to answer, was not, what are the Amish doing differently? He could see what they were doing differently. No screens, manual labour, early responsibility, a different relationship to time. The question was, which of those differences actually explains the outcome? Because that distinction matters. If it's the absence of screens, the answer is a parental control app. If it's the early responsibility, the answer is more household chores. But Stevenson's subsequent research and the work of developmental psychologists who have studied Amish child-rearing specifically since the early 2000s points to something that is none of those things on its own. It points to a specific structural feature of how Amish children exist in community, a feature that produces a measurable neurological outcome that modern child psychiatry now has a clinical name for. And the reason modern science took this long to explain it is that the Amish were never doing it on purpose. They were just living the way their community had always lived. The mechanism was invisible to them because it was, from their perspective, simply life. Here is what it is. Here is why it works. And here is what a modern parent can actually do with it. What we got wrong about why children struggle. The conventional model of child mental health, the one that produced those 8 to 12-week waiting lists, operates on a specific assumption. The assumption is that childhood distress is primarily a problem of the individual child. The child has anxiety. The child has attention difficulties. The child has dysregulation. The intervention is therefore directed at the child. Therapy, skills training, medication in more severe cases. This is not wrong, exactly. It is incomplete in a specific way. The research on Amish child outcomes forces a different question. Not, what is wrong with this child, but, what does this child's environment contain, or fail to contain? Dr. Karen Johnson-Weiner, an anthropologist at the State University of New York, Potsdam, who has spent decades studying Amish communities, published research in 2007 documenting something she called embeddedness, the degree to which an Amish child exists not as an individual navigating the world, but as a known, necessary, and continuously witnessed member of a specific community. Her word, not a clinical term at the time, it has since become one. The Amish child is not raised by parents. The Amish child is raised by a community that knows their name, knows their family for 3 generations back, knows what they are capable of, and assigns them tasks that reflect that knowledge daily. The child does not have to perform their existence to strangers. They do not encounter the social world as a series of evaluations. They are already known. They are already placed. What modern developmental neuroscience now understands is that this condition, being known, placed, and continuously witnessed by a stable community, is not a cultural preference. It is a biological need. And the absence of it produces a specific, measurable neurological response. That response has a name: chronic, low-grade social threat activation. The stress response that runs quietly in children who do not know where they stand, who feel perpetually evaluated, who must re-establish their social position in a new context each time they enter one. Modern children encounter this condition multiple times a day. A new classroom, a different social group at lunch, a sports team with shifting dynamics, digital social environments where status is quantified and visible. The Amish child encounters almost none of it. This is not the complete picture. There are 3 specific practices, 3 structural features of Amish community life, that together produce the embeddedness Johnson-Weiner documented. Each one matters on its own. But the reason Amish children do not need therapists at the rates modern children do is that all 3 are present simultaneously, consistently, from early childhood through adolescence. Here is each one. Tier 1, the foundation. Witnessed contribution. This is the one that looks, on the surface, like it's about chores. It is not about chores. When an Amish child of 5 years old carries water to the chickens in the morning, the developmental mechanism at work is not about developing responsibility. It is about something more specific. The child is being watched by people who depend on what they do. Not observed for assessment, depended upon for a real outcome. The chickens need water. The child provides it. The community witnessed both the need and the fulfillment. Dr. David Lancy, a developmental anthropologist at Utah State University, whose 2015 book, The Anthropology of Childhood, examined child-rearing practices across more than 80 traditional communities, used the term legitimate peripheral participation to describe this mechanism. The child is not practicing a skill in a protected environment designed for learning. The child is performing a real function in a real system, at the edge of their current competence, with people who notice and depend on the outcome. The neurological effect of this is not confidence in the self-help sense. It is something the research calls contingency learning. The child's nervous system learns that their actions produce real effects in the world, that those effects are witnessed, and that they are a necessary part of a system larger than themselves. A child whose actions are contingent, who understands through lived daily experience that what they do matters to specific people in specific ways, does not develop the diffuse anxiety that comes from social uncertainty. They know exactly where they stand. They stand at the water bucket, and the chickens are fed, and the adult nearby noticed. The modern version of this is not assigned chores. Assigned chores are often decoupled from the actual household system. They are educational exercises, not genuine functions. The Amish version requires that the child's contribution is real, visible, and genuinely needed. If the contribution could easily be done by an adult, and the child is only doing it for developmental reasons, it does not produce the same neurological outcome. The witness matters. The genuine need matters. Both. What this looks like in practice. A child aged 5 to 9 who has one task that the household actually depends on, that they are seen performing, and that produces a visible outcome other people notice. Not praise for performing the task, the outcome itself, observed by others. The most common error in trying to replicate this, engineering the dependence. Amish parents do not tell the child, "We really need you to do this." The need is structural and real. When you make the need real rather than performed, the mechanism works. Tier 2, the amplifier, the multi-age daily environment. This is the one that challenges almost everything modern childhood is structured around. In an Amish community, children do not spend the majority of their waking hours in same-age peer groups. They spend them in multi-age environments, working alongside adults, alongside older children, and alongside younger ones simultaneously. The one-room schoolhouse serves children from 1st through 8th grade together. Work and community events integrate every age. A 6-year-old routinely spends time in the presence of 14-year-olds, and an 8-year-old routinely cares for toddlers. The developmental research on this is striking, and it comes from an unexpected direction. A 2016 paper, published in Developmental Psychology by researchers at the University of Michigan, examined multi-age versus same-age peer environments across several traditional communities and a control group of Western children. They found that children in multi-age environments showed significantly higher scores on perspective-taking measures, the ability to understand that other people have different knowledge, desires, and emotional states than their own, by age 7, than children raised primarily in same-age cohorts. Perspective taking is not just an empathy skill. It is the neurological foundation of what clinical psychology calls social confidence, the child's ability to enter a new social situation and read it accurately, rather than feeling threatened by its uncertainty. Children who have spent years navigating relationships with people of genuinely different ages, different competencies, and different social positions develop a more sophisticated and more stable social nervous system than children who have spent years almost exclusively with peers their own age. There is also a status effect. In a same-age environment, status is zero-sum. One child's social rise comes at another's expense. The dynamics of a middle school cafeteria are not a cultural failure. They are a predictable neurological output of placing 200 children of identical age and development into a room together and asking them to sort themselves. In a multi-age environment, status is not zero-sum. The 8-year-old is not competing with the 14-year-old. The 8-year-old is learning from the 14-year-old and caring for the 4-year-old and occupying a specific place in a social hierarchy that has room for everyone because everyone is genuinely different. The threat response that same-age social competition triggers, chronically, daily, in millions of modern children, is structurally absent. This is not something you can fully replicate in a modern household, but there is a partial adaptation. The research suggests that regular, sustained, multi-age social exposure, not occasional playdates with cousins, but consistent weekly contact with children of meaningfully different ages, produces measurable perspective-taking gains within 6 to 8 weeks of consistent implementation. Community sports leagues, mixed-age faith communities, neighbourhood contexts where children of different ages actually interact rather than being sorted by birth year. The mistake most parents make with this, organising the interaction. Amish children are not placed in multi-age environments for developmental purposes. The environment is simply how the community is structured. When you stop organising the interaction and let the age mixing happen through shared real activity, the mechanism works. When you engineer it, children can tell. If you are watching this and recognising something, a quiet sense that the modern childhood you are providing your child is somehow missing a structural feature you can't quite name, that recognition is exactly what this research produces in every parent who encounters it for the first time. You are not doing something wrong. You are doing the most thoughtful version of what modern parenting culture makes available. The question this channel asks is whether what modern parenting culture makes available is the full picture. In this case, it is not. The third practice is the one that took researchers the longest to identify, because it is, from the outside, the least visible. It looks like nothing. It is the one, I would argue, matters most. Tier 3, the withheld mechanism. Unstructured belonging. Every element of the Amish childhood described so far, the witnessed contribution, the multi-age environment, is present in some form in various modern attempts to replicate traditional child-rearing. What has never made it into the mainstream parenting conversation is the third feature, and it is the one that ties everything together. Amish children have large quantities of time that is unstructured, unobserved by adults, and conducted within a community of known people. Not unstructured time alone, not unstructured time with strangers on a playground. Unstructured time within a stable community of people who know them. This distinction has a name in developmental research. Dr. Peter Gray, a research professor at Boston College, who has written extensively on the decline of free play in American children, uses the term free play within a community of mixed ages. But the Amish version of this contains something Gray's framework doesn't fully capture. The community is not just mixed in age, it is characterized by what researchers call pre-established relational security. The children playing in the field behind the Amish farmhouse are not having a playdate. They are not on an arranged social outing supervised at a distance. They are playing in a place where every child knows every other child's family, knows the social rules, knows their own place in the community, and has already established the relational ground on which the play happens. The social uncertainty that makes unstructured time anxiety-provoking for modern children, the status calculations, the evaluation of new peers, the performance of self, is absent. The children can simply play. A 2020 meta-analysis published in Clinical Child and Family Psychology Review examining 37 studies on free play and child anxiety outcomes, found that the anxiety-reducing benefit of free play was significantly moderated by social context. Free play in familiar, stable social environments produced substantially larger reductions in anxiety markers than free play in novel or uncertain social environments. This is why giving a modern child more unstructured time does not reliably produce the same outcome as an Amish child's afternoon in the field. The time is the same. The relational ground is different. The modern child's unstructured time often happens within social contexts that are still being evaluated and negotiated. The Amish child's unstructured time happens within a social context that is already settled. The practical implication of this is narrow but real. It is not about creating the perfect neighborhood. It is about reducing the social novelty load in your child's daily environment. Every time a child's social context resets, new classroom, new activity, new group, the nervous system has to rerun its social threat assessment. Families who limit the number of simultaneous social contexts their child navigates, who build depth in a smaller number of stable relationships rather than breadth in many new ones, are approximating the relational security feature of the Amish environment. One stable, recurring social group. Children who know each other well enough that the social negotiation is mostly finished. Unstructured time within that group, not organized by adults. That is the most accessible modern approximation of what the Amish child has by default in every waking hour. Each of these three features produces a measurable outcome in isolation. Witnessed contribution reduces contingency anxiety. Multi-age environments build social perspective and reduce status threat. Relational security in unstructured time allows the nervous system to actually rest. But what the Amish childhood provides that the modern replication attempts do not is the simultaneous presence of all three across every day, from the earliest years through adolescence. The child who carries water to the chickens does so in front of older children who have been doing it longer, and younger children who are learning to do it. They then play in the field with those same children, in a social context that needs no negotiation. They go to school with those same children, across age groups, performing real functions in a real community. The nervous system of that child does not have to hold open the social threat file for a single moment of the day. Every element of the environment tells it the same thing. You are known, you are needed, you are safe. The clinical term for the neurological state that produces is social baseline safety. The research on it, including work by Dr. James Coan at the University of Virginia, whose social baseline theory was published in Psychological Review in 2010, suggests that the human nervous system was calibrated by evolution to expect a stable community of known others as the default condition. When that condition is present, the threat response quiets. When it is absent, the threat response runs continuously at low grade, consuming cognitive resources, degrading emotional regulation, and over time, producing the clinical picture that fills those 8 to 12-week waiting lists. The Amish did not design a child-rearing system to produce this outcome. They live in a community structure that happens to provide it because their community has maintained the conditions that human nervous systems were built to expect. Modern parenting has not failed because modern parents are doing something wrong. It has produced the outcomes it has produced because it is operating in conditions that human nervous systems were not built for. High social novelty, frequent context switching, contribution decoupled from real need, and unstructured time in socially uncertain environments. The Amish are not the answer to modern parenting, but they are a demonstration that the answer exists. Honest expectations and what to actually do. The full Amish structure cannot be transplanted. Most of us cannot provide a child with a one-room schoolhouse and 3 generations of community history. But the mechanism can be approximated in pieces, at whatever scale your life allows. And developmental research suggests that even partial implementation produces partial benefit, not zero benefit, not 100%, but a real and measurable signal. Within 1 to 2 weeks of introducing genuine witnessed contribution, one task that matters, that the household depends on, that your child performs in front of others who notice the outcome, most parents report a visible shift in their child's sense of settled presence at home. Not confidence, not improved behaviour, just a quality of settledness that was not there before. The nervous system is receiving a signal it was built to receive. Within 6 to 8 weeks of consistent multi-age social contact, the same group, same children of different ages, same activity, parents and researchers both document improved perspective taking and reduced reactivity in social conflict. The relational security piece is slower. Building the depth of social familiarity that makes unstructured time truly restful takes months, not weeks. But it compounds. A child who has one stable social group they have known for 2 years is in a categorically different neurological position than a child rotating through activities and peer groups every season. None of this requires perfection. None of it requires a complete restructuring of your household. It requires choosing depth over breadth in your child's social world, genuine contribution over educational simulation of contribution, and stability over novelty as the default setting. The Amish figured this out, not by designing a child development philosophy. They figured it out by not abandoning the conditions that humans were built to live in. That distinction, not designing it, just not abandoning it, might be the most useful thing this research has to offer. If you are thinking about which of these 3 features is most absent in your child's current daily life, leave it in the comments. Not as a confession of what you're doing wrong, as a data point for what to look at first. The parents watching this who share what they notice are, in a small way, building the exact kind of community this video is about.